Welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in life as a military wife. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but I have kind of three basic formats I use for episodes. The first one is information about aspects of military life and just kind of how to navigate it if you're new in the military. The other is family life science stuff. That's what I've got my degree in. So it's interpersonal relationships, time management, family dynamics, etc. And then the last one is news, how aspects of current events impact the military community and us as a nation militarily. And so today we're going to cover a little bit more of one of those topics, the current events one. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and this is Life of a Military Wife. Okay, so that said, like what I went over in the intro, is that we are going to kind of talk about what everyone, or at least a lot of people, have been talking about lately. And that is the incident last week with the Chinese spy balloon. And I know typically this week, especially considering what tonight is, I would be covering the State of the Union, but that hasn't happened yet. Well, I say what tonight is because like or at least most of the time, I'm recording on Tuesday and the podcast becomes available on Wednesday. And we had this to talk about, so I'm going to save the State of the Union for another time. But anyway, so in regards to the Chinese spy balloon, I kind of want to give a timeline. And I think that it'll help to start with a timeline, and then we can talk about the rest of the stuff. So they retroactively been able to go back and figure out when it first entered our airspace and whatnot. The balloon first entered U.S. airspace on January 28th, north of the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. Then on the 30th, it entered Canadian airspace. And on the 31st, re-entered U.S. airspace in northern Idaho. Then February 1st was the first sighting of it at Reed Point, Montana. And that was at 4:21. There were more sightings east, and it was filmed east of. And by the way, these sightings were civilian sightings. The very first reporting of this event, now that's reporting of it, was by civilians. That hasn't been confirmed if it was our first, the military surveillance was aware of it. I'm not 100% clear on that because there's a lot of stuff being said right now. Anyway, as of February 3rd, it popped up on social media and it was basically confirmed. By that point, it was near Kansas. On the 11th, it was near St. Joseph, Missouri. And what civilians might not understand is the area of Kansas that it went through, there are multiple military installations in that area. Just so you know, this was clearly flying over our military bases. So then as of February 4th, it was over North Carolina, and then it was over South Carolina by 11:15 a.m. And then it was shot down as of 2:39 Eastern Time in the Atlantic Ocean on February the 4th, which was Saturday. So that is kind of the brief timeline of everything that was going down. And I feel like it's good to know the timeline just so that we understand this traversed the entire continental United States and Alaska and Canada before it was dealt with. This is the first instance of one of these balloons traversing that much of U.S. airspace unauthorized. Yeah. And I feel like for me, that's kind of an extra pet peeve because my husband is works with air components of the military, and I know what they have to go through vaguely, not specifically, because honestly, that's a lot of headspace to dedicate to something I'm not going to use. But anyway, um, I do know the general procedures and process and what goes into authorizing someone to fly through our airspace, including military airspace. That's not something we let our civilians do on a regular basis. In fact, I'm not even sure if civilians are allowed to fly through military airspace. I don't think they are. So, why on earth we allowed a foreign government to fly unauthorized through military airspace? I have no idea. But that kind of bugs me on all sorts of levels. And that's just where my initialness comes down to. Now, there has been reports, and I do have some basic information due to the reporting. Now, no, my sources are from all over the place. I got some timeline information from ABC. I read some stuff from NBC. I read some stuff from the Times. I did get some stuff from Daily Wire and Fox because I try to get information from everywhere because I'm looking for the facts, not so much the opinions. And the more sources you read, the more you're going to start to see where the overlap is. And overlap is usually where you get the core of the information that is reliable. So that's what I try to do. I try to look for overlap. That said, evidently, this has happened before. This has happened before, and it has happened, but it was different. So, evidently, a while back, a Chinese spy balloon crashed into the Pacific off of the coast of Hawaii. There's statements that one might have briefly entered the United States airspace and gone through a little bit of Texas and a little bit of Florida. There's another that said there might have been one off the coast of Virginia, but that's really where it starts and ends. They kind of poked a toe into US airspace in comparison to what happened this last week. It was like dipping a toe in the water, like, can we go in there? And it's seemingly test flights, like how close can we get? And because of the nature of those and the fact that some of them were not like, and this is to quote, let me find the quote. I want to make sure. Aha, yes. I want to make sure I am accurately quoting people, especially since I want to represent the military properly. So evidently the commander of NORAD, which is the North American Aerospace Defense Command, Van Herrick gave the following statement, and I want to make sure I am quoting people correctly. He said, "Every day as a NORAD commander, it is my responsibility to detect threats to North America. I will tell you that we did not detect those threats," referring to the ones that happened during the President Trump administration. And that's a domain awareness gap that we have to figure out. But I don't want to go into further detail. And personally, I totally respect that response because operational security is a thing. And so, yeah, we don't want to know exactly how they're going to fix that. I just want to know they're going to fix that. And props to him for owning up and saying, "Hey, our bad. We had a goof and we're fixing it. We know that there's a hiccup in the system and it's going to be squared." So that is good. But here's the thing. So these things happened in the past, but they were minor, as in they did not massively traverse the United States. And so, yes, they were not caught and they were not completely reported up the chain all the way to President Trump. This time around was a whole nother enchilada. Not only did it cross through Alaska, so passing our military installations there, it also went all the way through Canada until it came back to the United States and proceeded to then traverse the entire freaking continental US. Okay, not entire, but mostly coast to coast, which is unprecedented and absolutely shocking, or at least for me. I think it's ridiculous. So obviously we've got some splaining to do. That, well, not we, but yeah, there's definitely some hiccups that need to get fixed. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that the same or someone else, it was reported somewhere else, and I'm not exactly sure who reported this, so I'm not going to try to attribute it to anyone. But according to the information I was able to find, the balloon was 20 feet high. And I since got a picture of the balloon. And like the best way I can kind of visually describe this to you, if you haven't seen a picture or a video yet, which I think a lot of people have. I really hadn't looked at the pictures until today, but it's a 200-foot high balloon. So it looks kind of like a hot air balloon ish. Um, it weighed over a couple thousand pounds, and they were concerned that it might have carried explosives. Again, the same commander of NORAD, who I referenced earlier, stated that because it did not represent a physical military threat to North America, they could not take military, and this part is a direct quote, couldn't take immediate action because it was not demonstrating hostile acts or intent. So, and that is the other thing that needs to be taken into consideration. There is a protocol, there is procedure, there is a chain of command. And really, when this stuff happens, it's not up to the military to be like, hey, dude, we don't know what that is, blow it up. Because this is inside the continental United States. And we have a civilian organization, the FAA, that polices, not exactly polices, but they definitely they're responsible for tracking the airspace and keeping track of what's up in our air, what's flying around. And so NORAD has to work in conjunction with the FAA, the civilian resources, because this is the continental US. The military's job is mostly defending against foreign stuff that is an active threat. But anyway, so I do think it was definitely food for thought the way he pointed that out. Because first I was a little cranky that it all happened just because I don't like seeing infringements upon our national security by foreign entities. I just kind of, picky about that as an American. But regardless of that, this basically has sparked a whole bunch of different opinions and thoughts and perspectives by a lot of people. And it's complicated. I do think it's interesting that President Biden he states, this is what he says, that he gave the order to shoot it down on Wednesday, but it didn't happen till Saturday because he says that's what the military thought was best. And maybe it was carrying explosives is the reason why. But at the same time, there were experts, military. I'm going to have to pause for a second. Sorry about that. So, little one, bundle of joy, decided that they needed to be fed. So, I had to pause for a second. But anyway, what I was getting at is there were military officials stating prior to Saturday that they were looking for a strategic place to have it go down so that they could collect as much information as possible. So they knew what extent the Chinese were able to gather information on us. And if that's the case, having it be taken down over water seems counterintuitive because you're more likely to lose bits and pieces of the balloon. I don't know if they would have been able to recover everything. It just seems like the likelihood of not being able to recover everything increases. And that said, the reason why this is also important is that, okay, according to Brian Clark, the director of the Hudson Institute's Center for Defense Concepts and Technology, they were probably obtaining, even though it was not a direct threat, they weren't actively attacking us. They were getting close up visual imagery from lots of different angles on important strategic missile silos and other like U.S. bomber bases, um, all sorts of different important locations for our military security. And the most likely reason that they were doing this was that they were trying to test the U.S. air surveillance and response to less obvious threats. And in that case, they just proved they can waltz right in, fly through military zones without approval, and nothing happened to them while they were doing it. So that makes me feel a little hesitant and uncomfortable with that situation. Um, and honestly, people have been saying, well, what's the big deal? We spy on people, they spy on people, whatever. Yeah. And when we have spied on the Chinese and our stuff has penetrated their airspace, they've shot it down right away. So turnabout deserves fair play. I mean, if that's how they want to play the espionage game, fine. But they infringe upon our airspace and we're going to shoot them down. That's the precedent they've set up. And it was unmanned. It's not like there was Chinese citizens in there, which would have upped the ante significantly more. So and then the other defense, I've been hearing all of these arguments on why it was okay the Chinese did this, and I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, well, they do this to South America, okay, and Latin American countries can shoot down their balloons or not. That's their choice. They did it to Canada. Canada didn't shoot it down. Okay, that was Canada's choice. We also have the choice, and personally, I think it's completely unacceptable to let them do that to us when they've shot down ours. So, that said, that's basically where a lot of where it stands right now. And maybe in the future we'll get more information. Maybe we won't. In all sincerity, considering this is a national security issue, I wouldn't be surprised if we did not get any more information, not detailed information. We might get a few reports saying they've identified the issue and they've taken care of it. But I highly doubt any more specific information. And due to, operational security, I wouldn't expect it or want it. But I do hope that they as in the individuals who are responsible for fixing whatever it was that led to this. I hope that they get some policies and procedures in place. I hope they get some things taken care of and they're able to prevent this in the future. Thankfully, again, it wasn't manned. There was no malicious intent this time. So, yeah, but I think we need to send a clear and present, like a clear signal to the Chinese that this was uncalled for and unacceptable, and they really shouldn't try it again because it won't go well for them. Again, my opinion, my 2 cents, but that's genuinely how I feel about it. That said, because I had to take a bit of a break in between starting recording this and finish recording this because I had to take care of baby and kiddos and life happened. I did start listening to the State of the Union. I will go over it as best I can. If there does end up being anything of like anything applicable, I will do my best to cover it and let you guys know. Just like last year when they mentioned burn pits and stuff, I let you guys know about that. And I will again, if there is anything pertinent or at least that I feel is pertinent and helpful for y'all. So yeah, still getting back up to speed after having baby. Thank you for your patience. I am trying to keep up with social media and emails as much as possible. If you have questions and comments on all the babyness stuff or the Chinese spy balloon, please send me a message. I really do try to help, want to help. That said, I'm going to wrap it up, and I will catch you guys next week. As always, you are listening to Life of a Military Wife, and I am your host, Sam Wolf.